Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome you out here to the show. This is Mario Hardy, and then with me today is Ron. Ron, say hello to everyone.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining.
So today, what we're going to discuss is we're going to take a trip to Canada, and Ron is going to give us a full rundown of what goes down and what happens in event services in Canada, and then we're going to talk about some key things on how we can kind of like cross over to the United States. He's going to give us all the details because he not only DJs in Canada, but he travels across the world. So I'm looking forward to hearing all these great details. And first thing first, Ron, let's talk a little bit about how we met. And because I know a lot of people were asking me earlier, like, how did you meet someone from Canada? And I said, well, Ron, we met in a DJ group. What was it 2 years ago?
Uh, yeah, about that. Yeah, maybe a little longer.
Yeah, about close to three, almost close to three now.
Yeah.
And since then we've been following each other, keeping up with everybody, like keeping up what we do and everything. Um, so first question, Ron, and I had this on myself. Tell us a little bit about yourself. I know you're kind of like you've been in the business for over was it 47 years?
Yeah, 47 years. Actually, it'll be 47 years this June
Okay.
coming up.
So give us a quick rundown of your bio.
Well, it goes back to 1976. It actually started before that, but I wasn't. I was just an amateur. Really wasn't even a DJ back then. So I grew up in a small town called Glenwood, Alberta, and that's 2 provinces over from me now. And there's a population of about 250 people. So back then in the 70s, like there was really DJ wasn't the DJ service wasn't even recognized as a business until around 1979, somewhere in there, maybe a little sooner. But I always was around, like in school, the drama, the stage, helping out, setting up, all that kind of stuff. Kind of, we all go through drama and stuff in junior high and high school and all that kind of thing, as part of our curriculum, kind of to get into whether or not we go into show business or not. At that same time, we always had like community dances, and we would have it either at the church hall or a community hall, things like that. They would hire a DJ from either Carson or Lethbridge, Alberta, professional DJ. He's been doing it for a while. And one day he didn't show up. So they asked me if I could throw some tunes on. So, and this was like, 14, 15 years old, maybe around 15 more so. And can it be, so I didn't have any albums outside of, everybody pitched in, the 45s and the, records and things like that. And it turned into, like old country and 50s, 60s, sort of like a sock hop, which we called them back then. A lot of jive and things like that. So back then, there was the older turntables where you could stack up the vinyl, right? So you have the 45s up there and you kind of pick your song selection. And I didn't really know much, so that's where requests come in and stuff. Now if you but anyways, to kind of speed that up a little bit, that went on for a little while. I didn't get paid for it at all because I didn't even consider myself a DJ at the time. I was just playing music, right? So then, as I did it, I got more used to the songs and by requests and stuff, and I just kind of like it went with the flow. And when I turned 16, they actually gave me my first $200 that I first made in the business was $200 back in 1976. So then I started to, you know, look at it a little further and study the music a little more. So when I go home, go in the bedroom and you got the, the old turntable and you're listening to music from Lawrence Welk all the way up to, classic rock, well, old country and 50s, 60s. So we were limited to what type of music we had back in the day because, I wasn't going out buying anything record store. There was actually no record stores around. Closest one was probably like 2 hours away. But so that's kind of like where I started, and then I kind of branched out from there. Where now I'm going into high school, and we're doing high school dances, graduations, and stuff. and people would hire me because I was just available, and I put in a lot of time in the community dances and stuff. And I'm still learning. I didn't know a lot still. But as I went up, going to now doing church dances, we had a church dance in the hall, youth dance is what they called them. So I started DJing that. And so I started off more of a mobile DJ, not that I even knew any terminology. I was pretty, uneducated within the DJ industry in a whole. But it was not about education at that point. It was about learning the music and putting one record on and swapping it out, put another record on. And I kind of watched what Lawrence Welk did, and it's a lot different back then than what we do now. Um, and I kind of still have that old school uh, thing with me where you talk and introduce a song and say, okay, well, this is by Elvis Presley. We're going to send it out to Susan and, blah, blah, blah. And so that's kind of like how I kind of was doing my mixes because I really didn't know how to mix back in the day. So every time we put a song on, I would introduce the next song, and sometimes I put a couple of songs on, and then people would just dance to because of requests. So if it wasn't for the request, it'd probably be a really bad show, right? So do dance and stuff. So that's kind of like how I started, and then I went through to finish school, and then I went to moved around. I've been on the road since 1976, and then when I finished high school, 1978, I moved to Lethbridge, and at that point I needed a job. So what did I do? I looked in the newspaper back then, and they had the classified ads, and all the clubs that were in Lethbridge, a bigger city, were hiring for DJs. So I went down there and I applied for the job. Back then they had live auditions, and I still agree with live auditions compared to tapes because you can see the person, how they act on stage, how they talk on the mic, and their selection of music, and that's kind of like where it was back then. It wasn't like send a demo tape in and hopefully get hired. It wasn't like that back in the day. So I applied. Now, back then, there again, there wasn't a lot of DJs in the area. It's not like it is today, where you have a lot of competition. So I walked in, did the audition, and I got the job. Now, it was only a part-time job, meaning I was only, so there was a residential DJ there, and he wanted a day off, so then I would do the fill-ins. So his name was Marty. Long hair back then. It was a classic rock and roll club, and back then there was a lot of mainstream music. It's not like the genres today. We call it, classic rock and roll, top 40. So it was a little different terminology back then than today. I mean, you still have the R&B, but it was mainly top 40 mainstream. So the Marty was there, and so there's classic rock and roll, 50s, 60s, and heavy metal clubs back in the day. Where I started. So I first started classic rock and roll, and Marty became my mentor. So it's very good to have a mentor within the business and learn from as many DJs as you can. The reason why I do that is because everybody has a different way of doing things. No right or wrong way, in my opinion. I mix differently than another DJ, and so, but with learning how to mix vinyl, I started to learn by ear and doing, the counts and all that, your four beats and things like that. So I said, well, I don't know how to do this. He said, what do I do? He says, pick a record. So I picked a record. And so that's the first start. Put it on, put the needle on. And it ended up being Stairway to Heaven by Led Zeppelin, was my first song I ever played within the clubs. And everybody packed the dance floor. It's more like a lounge. So more, you have to pick certain music to fit that type of genre. It wasn't so much a dance. I mean, it was a dance club, but it was more, a lounge setting and things like that, where people would just come and drink and listen to music and, like a band setting. And then I moved up into, when I was doing that, just a note for all the other DJs that are listening, is that you don't know who's in the room. It could be another producer, it could be another DJ, it could be a multi-op, it could be anybody looking for DJs that want you for their club or for their show or maybe. So I was there for about maybe 2 years, and then Marty went to another club, and I ended up getting that residential job. And we would always help the other DJs within the city. And then I got picked up by a producer, a club owner actually, from Calgary, Alberta. He owned 25 clubs in Calgary. So he offered me a job in Calgary, and I asked him what it paid, blah, blah, blah. Back then, you're not making a lot of money when you're just starting out, but it was a chance of learning more about different clubs and getting an offer from another club owner that owned a lot of clubs. So back then, the job search for auditioning for DJ work was far greater, a lot more openings, but you had to be willing to travel. And I, single, not married, things like that. So I just, went with the flow, went to that club, moved to Calgary, and I stayed there. I was on the circuit there for maybe 10 years, 11 years, playing the club circuit. And then from there, I decided I wanted to learn as much as I could within the DJ industry or even showbiz industry in general. So I went to school. I took broadcasting, sound and lighting, camera work, so I could learn how the studio would work. So I was with taking that course. I actually my practicum was with the 1988 Winter Olympics in Calgary. So I was able to work at the uh, uh, plaza there where they had the Olympic Plaza where they had like Powder Blues and a lot of the higher end international bands and local bands playing. So that was my first kind of contact with bands because the bands and DJs when you were playing the club there was also live bands so you playing in between sets. And so the rule of thumb there is not to play what the band is playing. So I had a chance to play with Huey Lewis and the News, Cooper, um, uh, Stray Cats, and a few other ones. So that also was able to, there were party bands and things like that. They, recording artists, but they were party bands. And so then you kind of get to know their music and you get to add your music to kind of flow, keep the same flow in regards to the classic rock or 50s, 60s or whatever you want to play outside of not playing their song. So from there, they kind of speed it up a bit because it's a long, many years to go through. Is once I was finished, I was there then again playing in the nightclub, and this is how you kind of ask how you ask for jobs because if you don't ask, you're not going to get one, people won't know what you want to do or what you do. So there's a promotional company from Seattle, Washington, coming over and promoting the Monster Rock concert in Calgary, giving out free tickets and stuff. And that was Van Halen, Kingdom Come, Scorpions, Dokken, and one other band. And I asked the promoter, I said, how do you get, I just finished my schooling, I'm a sound engineer, lighting tech, things like that. How do you get on a tour like this? And he says, talk to me in my office at Monday morning at 9 o'clock. So I did. He had a sub office there. So I asked him, and I was able to go on as a greenhorn or a roadie, which I learned from doing the Olympics. Is you first start off, hauling on speakers and setting up, not so much setting up, but you kind of become a gopher and you run around and do things for the producer and other people that you run and grab a speaker and put it on stage and unloading trucks, things like that. So you got to get the do things and do jobs, not so much playing because this is kind of going into my other area of production work, where I wanted to learn because learning the production side with my DJ shows and stuff, it helped me learn where to put the lights, what type of lighting to use, the sound, how to do sound for, even if it's a DJ show, you got to have good sound. You have to know how to, set the room so that, get all the the pink noise out of there and make it sound good and know where to place the speakers and stuff. So education in regards to what I took in, sound engineering and stuff was really good because I was also able to do sound for bands as well as myself as a DJ. And so now I have my own production company where I also still do sound and lighting for bands as well as myself. And then as you're going along, you get the fans that are coming to the club asking, "Oh, do you do weddings?" And I said, "Well, no, I just a nightclub DJ." So I mean, it's a little different doing a wedding than doing a high school dance or something like that. Same concept, but just different music, different layouts. So as I was going through all these years, I was picking up showbiz or the industry kind of gives you opportunities. And with those opportunities you have, I've always started off with having an open mind. Not that you can do everything,
Right.
but um, learning it to how, to understand what the stage is all about, because it's just not about playing music. It's not about you standing up there, putting records on. It's about, the whole element of lighting, the sound, the decor, all that kind of stuff comes into play. So as I learned this, and it helped the show. It helped me get other jobs or my foot in the door. If I wasn't DJing and I couldn't find a job, then I would move into another line of work. Like I would have something else to fall back on. So like if I lost my club job or whatever, which happens, you're in and out of work all the time. You're always constantly looking for work within this business. Um, and then I just, and I've always started my company up back in '78, which was KMP event. Well, it was actually Night Music Entertainment Production because it was more focused on the music side of things. Through the years, I had to change and brand my company differently so that people would understand exactly what I do, because I do a lot of things. So with all that, I ended up going into, watching what weddings do. I worked with other companies within the industry as well to learn, and I had a lot of mentors and a lot of producers in regards to Morley, who owned one of the biggest entertainment companies in Canada. Now, the difference between Canada and the States, because I do travel and I have traveled down in the States, is that up here we have long events, long weddings. So we start setting up at 2 o'clock in the afternoon because cocktails start at 3. And then you go, and then 3 till 4:35, whatever. Then they have dinner, and then they have speeches, and then they have the dance party, which starts at 8:30, and we can go till like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. We're down in the States, they have these. When I went down there, kind of jumping ahead here, went down to Texas, and I got there, and it was only like a 2.5 hour dance party. That was it. I mean, like, it was really rushed within 4 hours, and I said, "Whoa, not used to that." But so that's kind of like where I started back in the day, anyways.
I mean, because like you've like I said, you've been, I know you've been longer than me, but it's like we kind of had the same setting as far as like the records. Because I got a chance, I got a small taste of records before they switch over to CDs, to albums and things in that nature, I should say. But that is kind of like a that's kind of like a adventure in a sense. It's almost like you was in Hollywood to a degree.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say Hollywood, but I mean, sometimes, yeah, sometimes you do feel like you're in Hollywood and they treat you really well. But I actually went back in I started off with cassette decks too as well. So it was Techniques cassette decks, and I really liked it when they come out with the auto rewind and fast forward. So as well, so back then, like if you had a mixtape, it wouldn't work. So you always had to have that gap in between the songs,
Right.
right? Because
Right.
when you hit number 8, I want to go to number 8. You just push it because I was tired of. Well, I mean, it was so nice that Technics came up with that turntable. I mean, cassette deck. But before you had to push um, play and rewind or fast forward, and you had what we call chipmunks
Right.
in the headphones. I kind of miss them actually, but I always blamed the chipmunk when there was records. So and that's kind of like how for me when I had to scratch my record, it was kind of funny because it kept going back to the same thing all the time, and I said, oh. I don't have to loop anymore, right? I don't have to spin backwards and play the song and just let that one go on that turntable and just put another song on and just stop it when I want it. You know what I mean? Like you have that same. So now you got you just push a button and it loops back. But back then you had to actually spin the records back so we'd actually have two records of the same. So I would buy 2 to 4 albums of the same artist because that way if something got scratched up, and have another one. But to make a EP, a extra long play like an EP, you have the two songs on two normal single 3 minutes and 40-second songs on each turntable, and then you go back and forth to make it longer. So you find pieces and do your transitions in regards to making the song longer back in the day. But then when you came out with EPs, then we were all out buying singles and EPs, the long versions and stuff. So that was kind of cool. That was the best part of I think when they had Sound here. It was a huge store, and that's where everybody went. You were able to listen to. So hunting for music was a really good. That's one of my favorite things.
It's funny.
Yeah, and finding music from around the world and things like that. So, but there's still record stores around, and I believe there's a lot more in the States too as well. But vinyl kind of like is coming back, but we have different copyrights up here in Canada. I'll just touch on that a little bit since we're on vinyl and why I still kind of use CDs and why I still kind of use vinyl when I have an opportunity to, is because here, when we buy albums and CDs, the copyright is already covered, so we don't need another license. Down in the States, the difference between what you guys do, you don't have to worry about that because I believe you don't have to worry about an extra license if you're doing digital down there.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a big a big deal. I mean, a big difference between U.S. and Canada is that and every other country in the world is that you have, if you're traveling, you got to figure out what the rules are in regards to playing music for your business, because every single country has different rules. Right. It's not a universal copyright music thing. So what you can do in the States, I can't do up here. What I can do up here, you can't do in the States. For an example, like when you're looking at social media, which is a very good tool to use in regards to education and meeting people and things like that, is that you have to be careful when you read comments and stuff, that comment may be only good for the United States of America, but it's not good for Canada. It's not going to work, up here. So that's a little difference up there.
And that brings my next question, because that's my next question was, what do you notice like in the industry, like the industry in Canada, the DJ industry / event services for weddings and events? What have you noticed? What's the major changes that have happened since you started?
The major, well, there's been a lot of things added in regards to DJs themselves. I guess I can touch on that, and then I'll touch on a couple of other things that are different between the United States and Canada. Business-wise, a lot, and going through all the years and transitioning into different genres and different technology, things like that. Most of it is all the same between the digital age and the gear and all that other kind of stuff. What would be different would be, and I know it's a little bit on each side, is a lot of DJs have gone into the one-stop shop kind of thing, where they do more things, they added more things, there were more services to make their, like interactive games, wedding decor, rentals. The only thing that would be kind of different there's no difference between setting up a wedding or setting up a show down.
Right.
If you're going for an agency as a DJ, and you're doing an agency here in Canada or overseas, the three things that I would think that would be different would be, one, the insurance policies are different, totally different than what you're allowed to do down in the States. So when you're traveling, and I have Canadian insurance, you have to find out and make sure that insurance is covered when you travel. If not, you're going to have to pick up another insurance policy while you're traveling in the States or overseas, because certain insurance companies do not cover different states or different countries. So if you're over there and you lose your stuff, you're not covered. You know what I mean? So you'd have to pick up some sort of extended policy in that country to protect you, or things like that, as well as the copyrights are different. Funding agencies between U.S. and Canada, the laws within the entertainment industry are different, such as agencies are allowed to do, what they can't do, what they're allowed to charge, the percentage, the commissions, all that. So down in the States, they may only charge 15% if they're booking you. So they'll take a 15% or 20% depending. Is that that's kind of like a standard? It's not really a law; it's just a standard practice.
That's right.
But you also have to remember what we talked about before was the exchange rate. So cost of living is different in the States or in other countries than they are in Canada. So what I charge up here and what DJs charge in Canada and would be a little like either comparable to what the States do. So if I say I'm charging $2,000 and somebody else down there is charging 1,000, well, you got to remember it's a higher cost of living up here, right? So people would, so you charge more. Sometimes it's equivalent, sometimes it's not. It all depends on where your market is and things like that. The other thing that would be different is you guys do a lot of emceeing down there, like for shows, like MC, master of ceremony.
Yes.
Yeah, up here in my experience, I've most of the time, the bride and groom would do it themselves or have well, not do it themselves, but have a family member do it. So there's not a lot of call for master ceremonies up here in Canada. And I've asked to do it maybe once, twice in my career. I'm not saying it's not out there; it's just not common, right, for DJs to MC up here.
That's interesting because that's like, man, I think it's like the opposite right here. Because like, well, for me, I think I've MC almost every single one. It's like maybe one or two weddings I haven't MC, but almost all my weddings are actually MC them.
Yeah, I mean, I know there are some DJs out there that do it. I just don't see a lot of them doing it that way. Um, the other thing that's kind of different, which I've talked to a lot of DJs out there too as well, within the club scene, my experience as well, is that we have up here. I'm not sure if you guys have it down there in the States or not, but the club scene in regards to what we do up here and what they do down in the States is probably similar, except for the amount of hours that we do. Like up here, they'll have 6 DJs going to a club, and they'll spend like I guess what I'm trying to say is that we have a lot more open format clubs up here, where we don't play just straight 80s or straight 90s. Okay, um, you guys would be more adamant into having more festivals down there in the States than we do up here as well. So that's we don't have a lot of we have festivals up here, but not as many as what you would do down in the States. Like like you have Burning Man, you have a whole bunch of other EDM shows, like Vegas especially. Vegas is you have more venues, bigger venues, more clubs, more of that Hollywood style opportunity to get famous in the States. And it's always been that way. Canada, States has always ruled the music industry. They've always ruled the motion picture industry, right? Things like that. So the opportunities, I would say, being able to go into a bigger sector in regards to DJing would, we would have maybe Toronto, Vancouver, um, things like that. We have like 2 cities, for an example, compared to you guys would have like, how many other cities compared to what we have, like big cities, right?
Right.
So,
So
but as far as the planning of the festival, events and things, I don't think there's too much really difference in regards to how we plan between how I plan and how somebody else on the stage plans a wedding. I think the principle is still the same.
let me ask this question: what made you decide to make that transition from being a DJ? And this is one of the things I like about a lot. I'm starting to see this a lot with even DJs here in the United States is they're making that transition of going from. I know you kind of touched base on it a little bit earlier, where you're actually changed from being a DJ service to a actual event like an event service, event service slash rental. What made you decide to go from DJ to that service?
Um, I think that originated back when I first started, that I wanted to know everything and I thought that I could do everything, right? Back in the day when I first started. But I guess it comes with, my age as well, and the amount of time that I've been on the road and not at home, and things like that. I don't, my life is more. I've been on the road more times than I've been at home. So yeah, I pretty much live in my car. So, but when I started, kind of like everything for me, it's like a puzzle. Everything gets connected, and you have opportunities presented to you, and then it kind of like puts an idea in your head. And I'm a very, like I said, I'm a very open businessman. I like to take challenges. I like to take. I live outside the box as well, so I don't do the same things as other DJs. I'm a little different in regards to how I do things. But when I'm working within the industry, and I was actually working at Shaw Conference Center in Edmonton, Alberta, and it wasn't, it was like it was still. So whenever I had to get a job, like a day job within my career, I would get a job that would be equivalent to the entertainment industry, whether it was the event, hospitality industry, whatever. So I ended up being able to set up tables, chairs, talk to wedding planners, event planners, things like that, and then go working on trade shows and things. And then I just asked a question one time. I said, how much does all this cost to do all this stuff? And she said, well, that table there, when you have 8 people sitting around it, and from the centerpiece to all these, dollar charger plates, whatever that they have around the table, would be around, just for an example, it's $100,
Right,
okay, to do that. So you have 300 tables in there, and you count $100. That's $3,000, right?
right.
So did I go for it because of the money? No, I did it because I wanted the education on how to do it. And if the money came, then great. Um, so that's kind of like when it started. Is that when I learned how to do it, the situation for me to actually start doing it didn't happen until. So that's why I have KMP Events Canada, because that's more like the touring aspect, looking after everything on the road.
Right.
Then I decided, okay, well, I'm just going to try this. I'm going to try and do, add more. It's similar to you're a DJ, so you're a talent. So you
Right.
have a price tag for your talent. Then you have your price tag for which I got from production, is that you charge out your speakers, your lighting, and all that to bands. So it's more like a lease where they take the stuff out for 6 months or a year or whatever, and they travel around and they have your gear. Some of the bands would have that. So it's kind of like where it started. Like I do the DJ, then I do the production, lighting, sound. So now I have 4 or 5 different ways to make money in the industry, right? My sound and lighting, whether I work for somebody or whether I do it myself. Okay, where I get a job for my company to go do lights and sound for a band or for a show or Canada Day or whatever the case may be. So that kind of like started that, and then I said, okay, well, I started planning and accommodate my clients more, like the bride and groom. They would ask me a bunch of questions with DJ, and I said, oh, wait a minute. I said, I can do that. I can do this for you. I can do this for you. So I started doing it by what is called facilitating. So wedding planner is another word for facilitating, which you would do for a corporation. So I did a lot of, I also do corporations as well, facilitate a lot of things, because a lot of times you have to look at the client and the bride and groom, or a corporation or something, that sometimes they have in-house planners,
Right.
or in-house facilitators, but a lot of times they're looking for people that can outsource or have the stuff themselves. So the client really doesn't care where you get the stuff from.
Right.
They only care that they have all the stuff that they want
Right.
in that venue. So now you got to look around. So that's kind of like how it started, by the clients asking me. I say, well, is there anything else you need? And they'll tell me. And I say, well, okay, well, I can do that for you. I can help you out. I was just like, I'm very helpful. I like to help people, right? And I wasn't getting paid for a lot of the stuff that I was doing. because I wanted to first. I wasn't looked at as a professional wedding planner or event planner because one, I was just starting into doing it. So I would, and a lot of DJs can still do that. They plan the reception, they plan all the stuff. But there are roles and there are duties of certain people from the catering and stuff. So I looked at all these aspects, and that's kind of like how I started. So it didn't really get started off like I did about 25 weddings, and I kind of started like six years ago. No, it'd be about 15 years ago that I started it. But I did it on my own by buying the charger plates, buying all the stuff that I needed, and start building, the rental store, which I didn't know anything about really. And so it was more like, okay, well, I'm adding more services and more product. And now what I can do now is, again, finding a mentor or another business person in the rental industry or in the event planning industry or wedding planning industry, where now I'm going to school or going to conventions, to learn how to do this. And social media and how other wedding planners, you see all the courses and all these things on social media. So you start so I learned by self-teaching myself and listening to other professionals in the industry. What really started everything was a fellow by the name of Steve Cody, one of the a very successful businessman, and he started off uh, because of social media or the digital age now. You have a website now. You have apps, and he started off with rent a marketplace online, which there is many of them now, where you can put you have all this stuff, especially through COVID. We all got locked down. We had no job. We lost our 80% of our business kind of thing or our bookings. So that when it really started off was I had my mind open and I was taught by a very high professional businessman on how to do the rental industry in regards to insurance and in regards to all this stuff that you need. So now it becomes an investment. So you start putting money into or like tents and
Right.
now you know what you need by looking at the tables at a wedding as a DJ, saying, okay, there you have this, and
Right.
then that's kind of like how you kind of like have to decide how much you want to do because you really can't do everything because it costs you a fortune, millions of dollars to buy thousands and thousands of products that brides and grooms need. So through all this stuff, though, that's kind of like how I started by listening to other business people, and now I facilitate by past clients, calling me and say, Ron, do you have this? Do you have this? Do you have this? There's three things that I do: I either buy, rent, or build it. That's what I do. So I ended up buying tents, and I already had my DJ gear and my speakers and all that kind of stuff. So it was really funny because when I opened it up, the brides would call me and say, Ron, we need a DJ system. I said, okay. And then I said, well, are you doing your own DJ? No, it was another DJ that have the gear, so they rented it for me. So then things kind of like spinned off by going with the trend and just going with the flow, and learning to accommodate whether you had to get it from somebody else, or you have it yourself, or you build it. Either one, as long as you were able to fulfill what your commitments are to the bride and groom or to the corporation to be able to um, get the things that they want for their show. So that's kind of like how it started. And then the other thing about it is the rental industry is a very good way to meet clients, and that's where all the bride and grooms shop, and that's where all the corporation shop, and things like that. So we network with a various good. It's one big family, and that's the rental industry. There's no such thing as competition out there, because the only competition I would say would be yourself in regards to
Right.
what you design. So what I design compared to what you would design, Mario, would be totally different,
Okay. So let me ask this.
right?
So when you right, so when you made this upgrade, did you have to take on laborers?
Not at the time because I thought I could do everything, but yes, you would need laborers to, I mean, I guess let me do it this way. So I could do it myself, not the tents and stuff. You do need a crew. Uh, the difference would be you either, if you could set up the night before and you don't have a problem with working 16 hours by yourself to get it done, then no problem. You can do it yourself, or you can hire a crew and get it done in 5 hours. You know what I mean? So yes, I would say, in my experience, if you are going to go into this one-stop shop and you want to do weddings and stuff like that, you do need a staff for sure. Yes, I would say yes.
I learned
Yeah.
that the hard way. I did. I remember a couple of back in 2018, I provided everything: the chairs, the tables, the whole thing. And I said, I'll never do this again because and boy, I tell you, I set up everything, and then the thing it rained the next day. So it was just a matter of going back and cleaning off the chairs. And I said, you know what, I'll
Yeah.
never. And so that's why I said that's why I knew I knew that if I was going to expand, I know I have to take on additional like laborers or be prepared to hire crews to do it.
I mean, and that's how it is with. I mean, like if you're like I'm just a solo op. I'm only one DJ. So the thing that I liked about it though is that I guess to go into a one-stop shop and work and your team also. Let me point this out. Your team also can become other DJs, other people in the industry. It doesn't have to be somebody off the street and you have to train them
Right.
because there's always somebody looking for extra money. It's not a competition because when you look at a show, it doesn't matter how big the show is or how small the show is. We all come together to get that show done,
Right.
right? We
Right.
all make a paycheck. We all make money. That's how my concept in regards to doing all of this is to also help other industry professions to create jobs, pay well, and the DJ as well, because I can book DJs and I have booked DJs. So when I do all of this stuff, I also facilitate the whole budget for the bride and groom. Okay, I
Okay.
don't go after the $3,000 for DJ. I go after the I ask them all the time, what is your total budget for your wedding? They
Right.
will tell me. So if it's 80,000, well, they still need money for catering because I don't do catering at all. I don't cook. I do provide some catering rentals for them. So uh, the overall thing is they have a total budget. Now I have my responsibility is to make sure that I can fulfill everything that they want within that budget, from DJ to the decor to the lights and sound to whatever that they want. Same with the corporation. They have a budget. I have to facilitate that show within that budget, whether it's dividing it up between you know 20,000, or you have an entertainment budget, then you have all the other kind of budget, and you have to kind of break it down to kind of like make sure that they have everything they want. The hard part there again with that is looking for um, the talent to book for those shows at the cost of what their budget is. So I always save the bride and groom, and I always save the corporations are a little different. They have bigger budgets sometimes. I always save around the $5,000 mark to pay the DJs. That's what I do.
Okay.
So
So
that's how. So when I negotiate, so when I'm a wedding planner or I'm an event planner, I'm also a facilitator to be able to talk to the DJs to say, I've got a booking for you, which I'm allowed to do because I have authorization from the bride and groom to do so, or from the corporation. So that's also where my other company comes in, which is KSP Modeling and Talent Management, CSA, Casting Services Agency. So I'm actually legal to book and sell talent.
okay.
So that's where that other thing. So in a nutshell, over all these years and learning from different mentors and different people, because you can't do this all on your own. You have to have other people teach you. And I respect everybody out there that has taught me everything that I know. and now I want to reciprocate that and help other up and coming DJs or the modeling industry is kind of it's a rough business. Trust me, I used to model myself, and that's actually another point. And I kind of jump around a little bit. But when I was a model, I went to modeling school, and I learned how to model. And then at the end of the school, they want you to model, but you don't get paid for it as part of your schooling, which is part of the case out there in the industry. But I said, but you need a DJ, don't you? And he said, yeah, that's what you do. That's what you do. So you tell everybody what you do, and then it's up to them if they want to hire you or not. So they said, yeah, well, how much would you charge? Well, I'm just going through business school. I'm like the business degree in performing arts and science as well. So the business course actually taught me, you know, before the fact, I mean, after the fact that I quoted out $500 for the show. And I provided all the same gear that I did when I DJ, like lighting and the sound and all that kind of stuff, but $500. But anyways, at the time, they were selling tickets for like 135 $200 for the show. It was a very high end show. So then but that's kind of like where it started to at the same time, is that the DJs already have most of the gear anyways. A lot of us do. Some of the DJs out there have. I've seen some even in Canada. The big RCFs, and they have very good gear, and they can do the same thing I do. With bands and stuff like that. It may be local bands, not international bands, depending on how much gear you got. But if you use your gear to facilitate what you're already doing, then you just find that extra funnel of income for your business, right? And the rental industry is one thing that I really like, and am going to focus on it because I mean, I bought one fog machine, which I never used for a long time, but now I got six of them, and I just rented out a couple of them this weekend coming up, and Halloween and all that kind of stuff. I may not use them in my shows anymore because they set off alarms and stuff, but for certain things you can still use them. But all these little pieces of gear that you got and all this stuff all contributes to doing a little extra photo shows and and making a little extra income if you're not DJing. And the other reason why I thought of that is because when you're young in this business, we look at like the Hollywood style, right? You've been there too. I want to be on stage. I want to be the EDM DJ. I want to be on the cruise ships. I want to be famous. I want to blah blah blah, right? We're all been there, right? But you got to stay humble, right? So so you have to decide, okay, well, I'm not going to be 25 anymore. I'm not going to be playing the clubs, all the time, right? Blah blah blah. So you have to think if you want. I mean, you could retire and just go and have fun out there, depending where you are in your finance and stuff, or you can keep going and trying to get out of the business. I've tried it. I've had medical issues where I was away for a couple of years. I was paralyzed. I could walk. And I get out of the hospital and go to my next show the day after. But there's all these things and elements that you got to think of. So if you want to stay in the business, you can either market other people, train other people. There's like the whole showbiz industry or DJ industry, and hospitality, event industry, wedding industry, all that stuff. It's just one big university. That's all it is, right? The more you learn, the more opportunities you have to make money in it. Whether or not you're DJing anymore, and but you don't have to do all this stuff. I'm just one of those guys that take thought, and I have to talk to somebody about it because I try to do everything, just like you did, right?
Right.
Totally impossible. I mean, I'm not saying it's impossible. Anything's impossible, but I'm not doing it.
Started.
What's that?
You'd be burnt out by the time you get started.
Yeah. But it always comes back to me, I mean, I got into karaoke now too as well, and karaoke. So I never been a karaoke host. I did a bit. I've had very good opportunities with many people, being on tour with major production companies and video road shows and things like that. I worked on a lot of big shows, but traveling and learning from your clients as well. even on pricing, they'll say, Ron, well, you're too low, and then so they help you find that happy medium on where to charge and what to charge. And you ask people, what would you charge for this? What would you charge for that? Blah, 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 blah. They'll tell you. Some won't. I mean, some people still want things for cheap, sure. But for the most part, accommodating your clients and it's kind of like where it's at. You got to just have and most of this stuff also, like I said, happened through COVID because I pivoted 10 times. I learned how to provide entertainment, at the houses, such as karaoke. And now I tried some other things that didn't work. So you invest $5,000 or whatever, it works for a little while, and it kind of like nobody wants it anymore. So it's a risk factor when you're looking at building your business in any way that you want to look at it. You have so some things will work for a while, and then a new thing comes out, or the same thing comes out. But a lot of the things that happened in the 80s and 90s, where we all had house parties, we all went to school,
Right.
Our college kids, university kids, they still do that because why? Inflation's gone through the roof. So what are they going to do now? They're going to go back to their homes and they're going to party at the house.
Right.
So that's where they care. So that's where I came up where I started to rent out karaoke things. I'm taking what the DJs or the karaoke hosts people do in the nightclubs. All I'm doing is taking it from there. Yeah, I mean, sure, still do that. I mean, I'm hoping I'm not taking everything away from them, but you take that and now you create an experience.
Right.
Anybody can rent out a karaoke machine. Anybody can do that. But what happened with me is I took out $10,000 worth of lighting and sound, and I turned their living room into a nightclub.
Right.
And I let 12-year-old kids handle my $5,000 mic and my board.
I remember you told me about this story. Yep.
Yeah. So the parents come up to me and they say, Ron, thank you very much. I had two 12-year-old kids. They rented out the whole system, DJ system as well. And this actually is another way of accommodating, even though you're not knowing that you're accommodating them.
Right.
Turned out to be an educational system for their kids to learn how to run a board, to learn how to hold a mic, learn how to sing in the mic, learn how to DJ. They're running on my decks all night long. And I left. I wasn't there. I just rented them the stuff. So they have, all my DJ. I mean, not my good decks, but I mean, they were good decks, but yeah, not the ones I use all the time. But they may not DJ the dance correctly, like how we look at it.
Right.
But if you have that mindset of all the people looked at these two kids DJing a show of 300 people, was the parents that were paying me for this. It was a birthday party, whatever. They actually had a blast because the kids actually did a good job. I'm surprised. They actually did a good job. And they, and so now that might open up something for the kids to learn how to do. It actually it helps me, but it also helps the kids or other people be more creative within their parties as well. Right? So it's not always about me all the time. It's about helping them, and then all of a sudden they say, "Oh, well, I want to do this again. I want to do this again." so it kind of does it take away. I mean, digital age, Bluetooth speakers, all this other kind of stuff. I mean,
so you're creating an experience. That's what you're giving a package of experience.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, and I've still hosted karaoke shows too inside apartments, and wherever. The sky's the limit, basically, in your ideas. The more creative you are in this business, the more opportunities the more growth your mind will become. Right. And now you're going to, don't be afraid to try something as long as you can afford to do it.
Right.
There's things that we do that, oh, shoot, I just lost, 20 grand, right? But, it's learning. You got to be careful, but make sure that you talk to other people that have the experience because, they will tell you what to do. I mean, but if you tell me something, Mario, say, Ron, don't do it, right? I'm probably going to do it.
Right.
Because I want to know, because it might not work for you,
Right.
but it may work for me. Then I
Right.
come back to you and I'd say, you know, like when you talk to DJs, you talk to other people, there certain things, and I've had a lot of conversations on this in regards to why don't they do it? Why are they not listening? It's because we all have our different mindsets and a different way of doing things. So what's good for me may not be good for somebody else. So it's okay that they don't do it, you know, because maybe they're scared. That you know, the whole thing though is don't be afraid to try something out there. You know, if the DJs or even anybody that wants to start a business in showbiz are learning how to do, well, you know, because we all grow up as, oh, I want to be that actor. I want to do this. I want to do that. So the more you learn about the industry behind the scenes as well, just not on stage, it's behind the scenes,
Right. Right.
behind stage. That's where the money is. That's where the producers are. That's where the creators are. The more you know what they do, the better off you're going to be in this business. Same with DJing, same with playing music. I can be a jukebox all night, right?
Right.
Am I a DJ? Of course I am. I'm making money as a DJ. Do I have to mix all the time? No. There's up in, so there's many ways to mix music. What I was told by another um, by another sound engineer when he was doing my sound, he said, so one DJ that was on my lineup, she mixed one way and I mixed another way. The difference was when the sound engineer had control of the the high end, the mids, the
Right.
bass, you know, things like that. Some DJs use their mids and highs and stuff on their board, which would conflict with the sound out
You're
toward
absolutely
into
right.
the speakers, right?
Right.
So, which is fine though. You can trim it, you can do whatever. So it's a different mixing style than what I do. How I mix is different than what most digital DJs do. Because I don't do digital at all. I do a little bit, but not so much. Um, but I found out that one, I play by ear, and two, I'm a rhythm DJ. That's what I am. I mix by rhythm.
Right. Right. Right.
And if you look on YouTube to know how to do rhythm DJ, I just kind of learned by doing it. I didn't really know I was a rhythm DJ until somebody actually told me. And that actually, you know, comes with the ears. So I mix with, you know, tones and well, beats too as well, but more on chords and tones and you
Right.
know, I mixing. So and that's an open format DJ because if you with me as an open format DJ and I'm a rhythm DJ, not saying that everybody has to become a rhythm DJ, but it's good to learn it. Is that when DJs say, well, how do you mix from country to R&B to rap, you know, blah blah blah, all this other kind of stuff. If you learn how to rhythm,
Right.
then you can blend or transition from somebody playing a saxophone into another style of, you know, cutting into an album, I mean, into a song by the same kind of tone or the same kind of rhythm, right? So your transition is a lot smoother. It's a different beat mix, it's a different style, but it's kind of flows from that into another chord that you can mix
Transit.
out, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I got one more question for you. I know we got like 5 more minutes. Yeah, one more question. When you travel, what's your hardest obstacles that you come across? Like when you travel, let's say when you come from Canada down to the United States, or when you have to go to the Philippines, what are your biggest obstacles when you travel?
Visas, making sure that you have all your. Um, I kind of like know how to do it now, but but the obstacles would be basically uh, the so if somebody's starting to do this now. We have different frequencies up here compared to what you have in the States.
Right.
So the obstacles is regards to you don't need to would be transportation taking all your gear down. You can't always do that because one, it costs so much to transport it. Two, you have so much you know declare it would be the border basically. If you pre-declare everything like what you're taking down, the only thing that they want to know is if you own the gear. Because if I go down there and I don't pre-clear it. Like I actually go to the border and I pre-clear everything. Tell them this is mine. I give them the serial numbers. I take pictures right, and I give it to the border guys. So when I go across, or it's not so much going across, it's coming back.
Right.
The U.S., the United States of America doesn't care what you take across the border, right? They only care what you're bringing back from the
Right.
United States.
I,
More so that Oh, where'd you get that laptop, or where'd you get that controller? Oh, I brought it down with me. Prove it,
Right.
right? So now that's a big obstacle for a lot of DJs. Don't, and make sure that you have, you got to have your letter from the client, where you're playing, what you're doing. Make sure you have your visa if you need one. Especially overseas, you have to be represented by an agency overseas as well as
I remember
because if some,
you told me that before. I remember you was telling me about that, especially in the Philippines.
well, anywhere, even in Malaysia or Indonesia, every country has a different laws in regards to entertainment visa or a DJ visa. Now, here in Canada and the United States, what they used to have is the NAFTA agreement. So the NAFTA agreement allows DJs to go down and work in the States without a visa, okay, on certain things. Now, that might have changed. Last time I was down there, I didn't need one, but you also have to be paid in you also have to be paid in Canadian dollars. You cannot be paid in US dollars at all, or you will be banned for 10 years.
Oh wow! See, I know that's what. Well, I know for the military when they bring MWR shows over to different places overseas, there's a whole thing that they have to do, like the visa, everything. I know,
Yeah.
like with Korea, is a lot to do because, like with me, I know when I was DJing in Korea. That was one of the biggest things I learned from the bands is all the things they would have to go through in order to come to Korea.
Yeah.
Uh, and
Yeah,
like,
there's a lot of paperwork, and there's a lot of, if you miss, like if you book, so if you get booked overseas, you have to make sure, first of all, do your research, because there's a lot of scammers out there too to say, oh, I'll make you ready to get over there, and it's not that, right? So you got, especially with the ladies, younger DJs that are, doing things, they get, there's a lot of bad things that happen. So you have to check out the agency. Make sure you talk to other DJs. And with social media, I know DJs in, Malaysia, Philippines, Indonesia, things like that, and they have agencies, especially on what they do now, and connecting with other DJs in those countries to find out what is needed for you to come over and play with them, or them to come over to Canada and play, go on tour with you, or whatever the case may be. And that was actually one of the other questions that another follower of mine was asking about: how do you get a gig overseas and stuff? If I have time to touch on that, Mario, that's okay.
yeah, because
Yeah,
that's something. I'm gonna be honest. That's something that the reason why I was doing all this research through MWR and everything and so forth was because I wanted to once upon a time wanted to travel with a band and be their DJ because I mean this they said, well, you know what, when you get out the military, if we're still doing this, you'll be great to be our band. Because what I did when the bands would come over to Korea, I knew what to ask. I asked them what wizard they're going to play, so I don't play their music, and I was able to work with them a lot. And I loved it when when bands came to Korea, and when someone said, well, you know what, we might want to hire you to go on the road with us
hmm,
because you're a great DJ. So
yeah.
I've always wanted to know. So yeah, go right ahead, share that information.
Yeah, so when you want to, so the whole thing is about connections in this business. So the more connections you have, the better off that you're going to be in regards to traveling. I now there's some bad issues that I don't agree with within the industry. I don't really want to. It's kind of hard for me to say what to do when there's also things that, yes, you can go overseas and play, and there's a lot of festivals out there, and I don't support this at all. And it happens in Canada too as well, where you probably heard of it as well. And it's called pay to play, right?
Was
It's called pay to play,
oh yeah,
which means it causes a false pretense, in my opinion. So if I wanted to go and play a big festival, which somebody asked me to do, and I had to check out that festival, which you do. Okay, where is it? Is it happening? No, there's been a lot of scammers out there, where, uh, you know, where you have to do your research in regards to finding the producer, who's doing this, what agencies are you signed? I mean, are they working with to get international talent over there? Because unless they're, I mean, if they're going to hire them directly, like if somebody calls me from overseas and says, Ron, I want you to come, DJ in Bali or Bali or whatever, or in Indonesia or Malaysia, wherever, then I'm going to find out more info on that contact, because my agency, which I have, I know how agencies work because I have one. So I would book myself through my agency, or you could use another agency, but you need for sure to be represented here, because if something goes wrong, they can get you out of there,
Right.
right?
Right.
Now, if you sign up with that show, then you have to make sure that they have the visas for you. They have to make sure that they have a place for you to stay, food. There's a whole thing that you need to ask for, because when
Right.
you get there, you don't want to be stranded.
Right.
Now, the one in it, it's called it is there's one in Spain or whatever. It's called IBAIZ, Isbel or whatever. You know what I'm talking about? Big festival over there. Anyways, um, in those festivals there, they said, yeah, you can come over. We have everything. They're legit. They're a big festival. The problem is they don't pay. They'll put you up. So basically, you get a free holiday out of the deal. You get free food and a hotel room,
Right.
but you don't get paid to play.
Right.
Which mainly a lot of the DJs will do it for promotional purposes only, which is okay. It's fine if you don't know any, if you don't
I've heard of these.
know.
Yes.
Yeah, or you have to pay. Like there's one in Alberta that you have to pay because the producers sometimes don't own the stage. They just produce the show. They own the name of the festival, but they don't own anything else. So they sell the name off for another producer to produce it, and that producer charges the DJs to pay to go on their stage to play, because and that's usually what happens as well. But as far as traveling, what you do is you start within your own local community, like what I do. I will go anywhere across Canada as long as I have my expenses covered and things. And how I started, I actually did it as a holiday. So I would go, I'd make my normal rate is what I would do in the province or the city I was living in, but they would pay for the gas, they would pay for the
Right.
food, the hotel, and all that kind of stuff, which is common. So when you're quoting things out to go overseas or anywhere, always remember that within showbiz, it's a common courtesy for the clients to do that for you anyways. They already know.
Right.
They know that they have to cover for you to be there. If they want you to be there, then they will pay to get you there. But when you start promoting yourself, though, you got to promote yourself not as the local DJ. You have to promote yourself as the national DJ now,
Right.
or you have to promote yourself as an international. So I can promote myself as an international DJ. Why? Because I've been across borders. Okay. If I was just traveling across Canada, then I'm a national DJ, open format DJ. So
Right.
it's also the terminology how you promote yourself within your bio or within your press kit, and make sure that you do have a good press kit. And if you don't know how to do one, make sure that you find someone that does,
Right.
because a lot of the international status require a press kit.
And I think that's one of the biggest things I learned before I left the military was how to do press kits, because that was like public affairs. That was one of the biggest things we had to do with certain people, certain things, is
Yeah.
prepare a press kit for those type of things that were taking place. And so, like with mine, yeah, that's a big must, especially if you're doing a lot of traveling.
Yeah, but the way to get to get gigs or to get paid for it. Now you can go and do something to get your name out there, whether
Right.
you do it for free or whether you get some money for it. There should be at least advertising dollars. So if you take how much it would cost you to advertise yourself to go overseas or to go across and travel, become a open format party DJ, whatever you want to call yourself, or a festival DJ, whatever. I picked the party route is because there's always money in the party, open format party DJ, whether it's a club or whether it's a house party, 2 provinces away or whatever, or it's a venue or a wedding or a corporation. So once you start going out of your local city, if you want to travel, then you start getting, you go further and further out. Like, first of all, it's 2 hours away. Now it's 16 hours away. Now you got to take an airplane ride to Alberta to do a show, whatever. Why would they hire me from Ottawa to go to Alberta or to BC compared to hiring a DJ in that city? That's a golden question that I don't think anybody has an answer for, because we really don't know. Outside of they like you you know, for whatever reason they got a good reference from you. Would they pay you more? Of course they will. Um, you know, so this is what I was trying to say to the other DJs out there too, that say, well, depending on your market area, that is true in some areas, because there is some cannot afford a $3,000 DJ, right? Or a $5,000 DJ, or whatever the case may be. That market is a small town, you know, but at the same time, there's always somebody in any single marketplace out there in the world that will be able to afford to pay your way over there, because one reason only, in my opinion, that's because they like you,
Right.
right?
Oh, that-
It's your personality more so than your music that will get you a job. Customer service for one, you know, uh, 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 you know, what's the word I'm looking for? You know, accommodating the client, you know, or you know, and then having your, I mean, you don't have to have any of this stuff. You can just rent it when you get there. You know,
right.
that's another obstacle. If there's stores out there, so so when I travel, I can travel across Canada, and I can, you know, sometimes I can rent in
Right.
Vancouver or whatever, because it's cheaper for them to, for me to rent and charge the client than it is to haul it all out there, right? Or drive 7 days, you know,
I,
to get there or whatever. Now, the other thing too is what you need to know to help keep your expenses down. I mean, you're going to get paid to travel, but this is what I do. If I have 5 brides, or if I have 5 shows, corporation shows or nightclub show or whatever, and it's in Vancouver, and that's a 5.5 hour plane ride, right? Um, then they do that with the bands too as well. So the promoters that promote you should um, um, share. So each promoter would share the cost. So if I'm going from here to Alberta, and there's 5 brides there that I got to do, and my plane ticket is $800, I divide the $800 amongst the 5 brides that are there. I'm already going to be there. There's one every week. Now, where do I stay? Well, I have family in Alberta, or whatever. But most of the time, I go, and then I would just take a holiday afterwards, anyways, because I make enough money that I can do
right.
that. Or I drive, you know, or I fly back and then fly back again. There was one time I was flying back and forth from Kelowna to Calgary, back and forth every single weekend, just to do shows, because when I moved, I had to finish up all the shows that I already had booked, right? So flying back and forth, that's a lot. But I think it's just getting yourself out there and getting to know, let people know that you're willing to travel, and
Right.
you know, for a certain cost, as long as your costs are paid for, you know, your gas, your rentals, or whatever you have to do, or you know, even if you want to go for $1,200, the same thing. No rhyme or reason on. I mean, you know, whatever you want to charge, you charge. Is what I'm trying to say. I don't get involved with, you know, trying to match TJ's up in place what they charge. But if you do it for the experience, you'll get better and better and better and better at it as you
Right.
go along. You will go through some, you know, ups and downs, and you'll probably, you know, wish that you didn't take that trip. You know, there's a lot of you know, making sure that you have travel insurance, make sure you're you know, not vaccinated, but I mean, you have your shots. There's certain countries that you have to have shots before you go, so you don't get sick, you know, things like that. But it's just mainly make sure you go there, and make sure you have all the paperwork, your letters, your engagement, where you're going to be, how long you're going to be, you know, all that kind of stuff. And there's certain, and how long you're allowed to stay there.
Right.
Sometimes you can go somewhere like Philippines. You can go to Philippines for 30 days without a visa. If you're working, you're allowed to do business there, but you have to have the proper paperwork, so that when you do go there, you can work there for a year and do your DJ thing or do whatever you want, right? If you
And I
know what
think
the rules are for that country.
I think that's what it is like with the MWR. One of the things I was studying it because I really wanted to learn that concept. And a lot of times, what the bands would do is they'll do a cycle of they'll do 30 to 32. Was it? I think it was like 30 to 45 day tours
Mhm.
in Korea. So sometimes it would go up to 60, depends upon how popular they were. And they would come over and they would travel and they'll do certain shows throughout on different bases. And then they would come back in their visa. I was fascinated with that because, they here it is, they get paid to come over, entertain, and then they go right back to the United States. And they got a
Yeah.
chance to see like go to different countries. Um, so that was very fascinating for me. I know me,
Well,
just like what you were saying before, it's like I had an opportunity to go to Vegas not too long ago, about like 2 weeks ago, and had to turn it down because what the actual, and this is a lesson learned, is the way you market yourself. Like you said earlier, you have to be prepared to explain to the customer what that means when you travel,
mhm.
because the marketing that I was doing was within a 200-mile radius. And so when they saw out of town, they saw the price for out of town, they assumed that that price would cover going to Vegas.
Yeah,
And
and that's why you always ask. I mean, a lot of DJs don't do this, but it's always worked for me. I always ask what your budget is before I even give them a price, right? And because I learned in the business that if you tell somebody how much you want, that's what you're going to get.
right,
If you ask them what is your budget, they say, well, we don't want to spend any more than $2,000 or $3,000, right? Okay, give them a couple $100 off, whatever whatever you want to do,
right,
because then now you already know where. I mean, if you are allowed to go on that trip, well, I mean, if I'm going overseas, you better have a budget of about $10,000. I'm not going,
absolutely,
right?
right,
You know, just to start. That's just to start. And when I went down there, there's you also have to remember too. You also make sure that you have a contract written up by a lawyer that um, knows the business, because I've been in places where they promised me all this stuff, and this is when I was doing nightclubs and I was touring, and you know, I go way out in boonies, like way out in the middle of nowhere, and I do a nightclub, which we call a dive. It's not, you have your class A. I mean, you have your A room, your B room, and your C rooms. Your C circuit. Like your different circuits out there. You got the casino circuits, you got the hotel circuits, you got various nightclubs or pubs or whatever. Well, when I got there, the whole DJ system was just like a mess. It was like uh, it was dirty, it was dusty, it was like a fire hazard, all this other kind of stuff. And then they said, oh well, and this is your hotel where you're staying in. Well, I go into the hotel room, it's like pardon the expression there. And so what I did is you have to call your lawyer, because what they provided you and what you got was two different things. So you
right,
got to make sure that your rider contract and all your contracts state, like if you want water on stage, and some of the bands are like that. You want water on stage at six o'clock, you better have water on stage at 6 o'clock. It's not going to sue you. It's a breach of contract. All those little elements that you have within your travel itinerary, and where you're going to go, and you need somebody to check it out, make sure that you're not going to go into a dive hotel. You want this hotel, and then they didn't come across with that. So I'm not saying you need, uh, a $2,000 room, but something that's when you go overseas, you don't get that. I mean, you're going to be in a small little hotel room, and it's not doesn't always have all the the elaborate stuff that we have here in
right,
Canada. But that's just the way it is. It's an experience to go out to certain towns and cities that don't have. I mean, I went out to a city just outside of Ottawa here, and they didn't even have internet. They didn't even have bathrooms. It was an outhouse. What?
oh,
It was like 2 hours away.
right.
It's like they fell off the face of the earth, right? So those are all the elements in that the struggles is I guess also going to places that you really don't know, and also to record and keep track of where you do go, so that if you do go there again, that you know what you're in for, and now you can say no, I don't want to go there because I've been there before. You know what I mean? So you should always keep a kind of like a journal of where you go, in pictures and stuff like that. And, it's kind of cool. So
Okay. Well, Ron, this has been a very educational. I mean, you pretty much everything that we said we was gonna talk about. We talked about it. You cover a lot of details. I mean, I actually could relate to a lot of stuff that you were saying because almost everything that you said, like on your journey, I'm like, I've been right there. Like I've actually done a lot of the stuff that you have done. So that was kind of like fascinating because I can easily connect to what you were saying when you was talking
Well, we're
about.
yeah, like we're all the same, anyways. I mean, like you, I mean, like some of the new DJs, like what I call digital DJs, not old school DJs. Um, they also help me to learn digital, even though I don't like controllers, I hate them. But if I don't have a deck that can take a CD, I won't buy it, right? So when I go out and I buy, a Newmark deck, because Pioneer doesn't make a deck that takes CDs. That's why I bought the Newmark. I'm actually a Pioneer guy, but I bought a Newmark, one of the old ones that they brought back out, which is fine. But I think the other thing too, which I learned also from just recently, um, which is kind of sad, that when you do go to certain festivals and stuff like that, you have to know very like Rain 7 and things like that. I've never used one before. I'm sure I can figure it out. But if you're actually mixing on a Rain 7 or digital, myself, I could probably get by, but I wouldn't be as competent enough as a digital DJ. So that's the digital world kind of holds me back in regards to certain things because use the gear that they have, right?
Right.
And when you travel overseas, though, they are using, Pioneer, Nexus in 2000s. They're huge. You got 4 decks. You got 2 decks on each side of you, plus the turn about, plus the 4 6 channel board, right? Things like that. So their equipment is far advanced more than what we are, I would say.
Yeah.
They use different gear. They're not using just. It's not like you just pick up your controller and go over there. If you're doing your own show or a wedding or something like that, traveling with a wedding DJ, then yeah, sure, no problem. But if you're going into a festival or club, you got to learn that, oh, it's not all digital.
Right.
They're still using, decks that don't, I mean, some DJs don't even use computers. They use USB sticks or something like that, or they're throwing CDs in or something, whatever. They're all you've probably seen them out there,
Right.
you have to know how to play those things.
And see,
So,
what stepped up my game was when I went to Korea in 2006. The club that I was DJ, Tommy D's, I was that the technology that they had in that club was way beyond what I was used
oh
to,
yeah,
and
yeah,
I learned because then they had the Pioneer DVD, the DVD CD mixer plumbing, where you could either put a DVD or a CD in to play, and
mm,
you could play video or music, and then it was connected to 10. I want to say it was like 10 55-inch screen TVs throughout the club, and I was just fascinated because that was my first time ever coming across a system that was that high tech.
yeah.
And that's where I learned Mixmeister. Mixmeister was one of the programs they were using back then. I mean, to this day, I still use Mixmeister, but that was like a very, like, really big thing in Korea. So that was just one of those things to where I gained a lot from that, from being overseas. Um, just being introduced to that system because that's how I was able to make that transition from CDs into MP3s and MP4s.
Now the difference between some of the when you travel too as well does relate to what type of music you play to as well. So the more versatile you are, the better off you are out there. So when I do a world festival, music festival, I have to learn music from every single country in the world, right? Because you're not just so when you're looking at and the other thing that I have to jump in. So many things that remind me up here. The difference between Canada and the United States of America, which I also learned real quick here, is that when you go far south, we listen to country. Their country is totally different, and each different marketplace that you go to is totally different than what I learned up here. Let me tell you, it's like swamp. When you get down in the swamp country, and they got bluegrass. I mean, we have that too up here, but not like down there. It's like hillbilly rock and roll and all this other kind of stuff. And then when you go to LA or you go to different parts of the U.S., the music. I mean, some of it is the same, but there's a lot of music that they listen to that we don't listen to up here,
Right.
right? We don't even hear it. We don't even get it up here because it's not allowed in Canada. It's only allowed in the U.S. So there's a lot of music out there that is, when you try and get music from Bollywood, like Hindi music and North Korean music or South Korea, wherever, which is now starting to come over into North America. You also have to understand that we're all a multicultural now. We play different things. So I've done weddings and I've done, so you have to learn that music, and you have to. A good way to learn all that stuff is get on social media and connect with the other DJs in other countries. And I mean, I'm on TikTok. And I connect. I'm on there to connect with other DJs and other people around the world to see what they're listening to,
Right.
so that when I play or I like that song, because a lot of DJs say that they can't find any music here. Well, what you do is you got to find it from Instagram or TikTok or
A lot,
overseas.
a lot of it, believe it or not, you can find a
This
lot of YouTube.
What's that?
I said a lot of the music you can find on YouTube.
Yes, on YouTube as well. Yeah,
Find quite a
yeah,
bit on YouTube because I know, like, I had to learn a lot of Thai music. I learned like a little Philippine music. I know just within the last couple of years, I've had to pick up on a lot of different like K-pop. K-pop was a real popular one last year.
I love K-pop, and they're actually getting more popular, but they're hard to find.
More popular. So it's kind of like you have to learn a lot, and that's one thing I could really say about the military. Being in the military is being exposed to you have your main genders, and then you have your subgenders of music,
Yeah,
and the more you learn, like Latin music. Oh my gosh, there's so many different genders under Latin
yeah.
that's ridiculous, and it's like, I mean, every time I even come across another event, it's like I'm learning a whole nother gender of music.
How do you find your music, Mary? Do you actually get request list from people to
I
get your music?
I actually get my clients to send me a list, and if they like I said, and if like and most of the time when I did my wedding, it was a mix of Thai. I actually told them to send me the YouTube links, and what I would do is go in, and if what's so funny is I would get the actual YouTube links and um, listen to, even though I couldn't understand a word they were saying, I would just listen to the beats, and then I would try and get a translation of the song.
Hmm.
I kind of knew,
Which is the hardest part to do.
boy, I tell you, that is the music that, I mean, when you have to step outside of your comfort zone with
Mm.
music, that is one of those big ones that, like, learning the different, like, Latin music is not hard. Latin music never really been hard for me, but like when I had to start learning Thai and Philippine music, it's
Mhm.
funny to me because the BPMs are extremely easy to mix, but just not understanding the lyrics. That's the part that I have
Yeah,
a
that's the hard part of it. But and then I mean, you have to. So that's why I try to connect with people from the country, whether it's here or over there. Like if I'm playing Hindi or something from Bollywood, their drum and bass there is incredible. It's one of the best in the world. The drum and bass, as far as I'm concerned. And then you got Bangladesh, where a lot of the music composers came from and influenced North America, right? So those countries where a lot of music originated from, tones and drums and all that kind of stuff, Africa, all those places that come and influence us. Now we're getting influence from, Asian Pacific, North Korea, all that coming over, and they're getting, they're getting more and more into the clubs. It's still hard though to I find sometimes when I play the clubs here. There's certain if you don't have a majority of the culture, like East Indians or whatever, in that club, it's hard to play it. You know what I mean? And they're really good songs, because most people speak English.
right. Yeah, and that's
Right?
it. And I think that's one of those things to where, again, that just it really builds you up. It makes you a stronger DJ
Yeah,
when you're able to connect the dots. I mean, and most time when people can, when they hear a DJ playing something that they can relate to, it blows them away.
yeah. But also over in the Asian cultures too, which happen to a lot of bands, and it's a different way that they look at things. Is when Kiss and the other bands they weren't doing so well in North America, maybe they were just washed up or maybe they're not doing quite well.
Right.
They went overseas
Right.
and they became famous again over there because when I go there and I'm white, you could be technically you could be in a white t-shirt and blue jeans and you could just play music and not really have anything. You don't have to be really. I mean, you have to be professional, but you know what I mean. You just play
Right.
music, and they would love you. They
Right.
may not like you here anymore, but they love you over there because they
Right.
look at different things. They're just happy to see something that's different. And if you have a CD, especially in Japan and stuff, it's a status quo. I got something that you don't have, so now I'll buy it for $10. I sell it for 50. Things like that. But it's just a different way that, and I was told just over the Christmas season here that when I was doing my shows, and to them, even if you made a mistake or just something, they don't look at, oh, you did a bad mix or you did this or you did that. They don't look at it that way. They want to have fun. They don't care if you have a break in between. You know what I mean? It's more down to earth. It's more like let's just go have fun and don't worry about all the crazy stuff. I mean, sure, if you're DJing off of two cell phones or Spotify and a commercial comes out, that's a little different, right? You know, but that's not cool. But a lot of times, they just look at things. It's a different world over there. It's totally different here.
Yeah.
That's what keeps me humble, and that's what keeps me, you know, uh, respecting other DJs and respecting other people in the industry. Because if it wasn't for a lot of people in this industry, I wouldn't be where I am today, for sure. You
Yeah.
know,
That's right.
and we always have to. We're not always going to agree on how we do things, what we do. You know, I mean, I could still technically grab two basic decks, nothing fancy. I could go out and I could play music. I don't have to have all the lights. I don't have all this stuff, and I could still DJ. I don't need all the high end tech gear to do it. You know what I mean, right? We just have to go with what we have, and you got two cassette decks lying around. Hey, go for it. Because it's all about fun, and that's what all my clients say. It was all they're looking for is a fun time for 4 or 5 hours. Don't get too serious. Do your best you can, and let's help everybody out. That's basically where it's at, right?
That's pretty much it. I mean, I should shoot. That's what I did for my wedding. My wedding was with a boom box with two cassette players in it.
Mm.
That's what I made a mixtape and played it. And when it was done, flip it over and play the rest of it.
Yeah. And
But yeah,
with digital age, you look at digital age, you can DJ off of two Bluetooth speakers. You don't need it.
right.
You don't even need a controller anymore. You just Bluetooth it out the way. I
So
mean, the industry is changing so drastically that you know you just kind of got to go with the flow. I mean, hopefully not sell out to the digital. But I guess maybe I'm still holding as an older DJ. I'm still holding on to the old school way because I'm more comfortable with the old school way because I know I have something that digital can't take away.
right, right,
You know what I
right.
mean? So
All right. Well, Ron, thank you again. Okay. Someone just coming to the. Thank you again for joining us. This was awesome. I said we definitely got to do this again.
did we
Um,
answer all the questions that they had?
Yeah, actually, that's what I was looking at. You actually, believe it or not, as we was going through it, you was answering the questions before I even asked them. So I
Okay.
was like, okay, but yeah, you pretty much covered all the details of what we want to talk about today. And I mean, I think what we talked about. I'll go ahead and do a summary. Is you did your bio, you gave us a good bio, your rundown. Um, let me see here, go back up because I was sitting here looking. We did the this is to tell we talked about the industry for U.S. versus Canada. We talked about the changes in the digital. We hit that quite a few times.
Yeah.
Um, um, the differences between USA and Canada. We talked about that, and then we talked about the challenges You kind of hit that the biggest challenges, and we kind of talked about the digital and labors and things of that nature. Uh, so so yeah, but we pretty much covered everything.
Okay.
So so that's why I say y'all. I mean, this was awesome. We definitely got to do this again. I know right now
Yeah,
we're
it's fun.
at
Lots to talk about, lots of stories, you know. And
Oh yeah,
actually, I like to listen to other DJs too and their stories because that's how we learn, right? You know.
right. That's one of the things. Education. This is all about educating
Yeah.
um, the future DJs and DJs that are trying to learn more. This was good information, especially talking about the difference between Canada, U.S., and then like traveling. That to me is my next big move is to be able to travel outside of the U.S. and DJ.
Yeah.
Um, traveling within the United States is that's challenging itself. But I know the next big challenge is to take it to a whole new level and go out of country, which I
Yeah,
know.
because you're not that far away. You know, basically every time you travel, you have to promote yourself too as well. Because what's going to happen is and especially with social media and it's just kind of like I'm not very good at social media. I don't even have a website really. I just know most of it's by word of mouth and stuff. But with and Google Pages, like that's where we learn. You told me all about Google Pages and I got one done, kind of.
Right. I remember
It's
yeah,
not that great, but anyways, that's how you get connected. And then when you get a, so I got a bride from Australia, believe it or not, and I actually planned her wedding when she lived in Australia and she was getting married in Banff, Alberta, which was two
oh,
provinces away from me. So
oh,
we planned by texting, sending photos back and forth what they wanted. I knew exactly what she was playing because I'm from Alberta, so I know Banff very well, and I know the venues out there too as well. So I already knew when you're going, especially when you're traveling, you need to take photos of the hall so that because you can't always go and check that venue out
right.
and see what you need or it's very complicated, so that's why sometimes I take a lot of stuff because I don't know the whole systematic or the size of the venue. So you always take pictures of those venues because you're guaranteed you're going to go back to them again, right?
Right.
And so you have to keep track of that. That'd be the hardest challenge, I would say, knowing like you can't do a site view, you can't do this. I mean, unless they have somebody and send it to you by social media or the internet. That's the only way you can do it. So that's I would say a lot of like when I go traveling to certain places, I don't see the venue till I get there, right? So the thing also about being a wedding planner and an event planner, and I'm planning that wedding, I don't have to worry about being stuck in a corner, right? So I can put myself in front of center and stuff like that. So there's a lot of I mean we could talk about this for hours. There's lots of info to be
Well, yeah, we like I said, but we did good today. So I know we're a little over our time, but we did good. Like I said, we covered all the details. I think Chris. I know Chris. I know he's been sitting here. He's been watching us, and Chris is about to
Oh,
head
hi,
over.
Chris.
He's about to head to Korea, so he's gonna get a chance to get a taste of that overseas DJing. I told him be prepared, so he's looking forward to it.
Who's going to Korea?
He's going to Korea, yeah.
The DJ?
Oh yes. No, he's going as he's actually in the service, so he's going over there. But as that's one of the things I told him about going overseas as a DJ, you get an opportunity to like test your skill set in an overseas setting.
Yeah, I know another friend of mine that Japan, and for me and for him and probably other DJs too as well. When you go to Japan and you go to places like that, when you come back, it's a it's totally different in Japan than what it is here. Totally different. It's not the same. The music, the vibe, everything is just totally. It's just it's hard to explain, right?
Right.
In regards to how you feel about playing DJing over in these countries, because there again, it always comes back to fitting into the element, no matter what's small. You have to. The whole idea of being an entertainer, I could say more so than a DJ, an entertainer, is to make sure that those people, even in a small little town, has fun in a smaller places, right?
Right.
They just happy to see you, right?
Right.
Because
And
sometimes they don't. sometimes they don't have that opportunity to see people from different countries, and they can't travel. They're poor. They don't they don't just don't have the money for it. And so when entertainers like myself, and I'm not famous like anybody else is. We all have followings. We all have friends. We all have people that like us for whatever reason and to learn and stuff. But it all comes down to the fans, and if the fans love you, the promoters will book you again. It's not about me. It's about putting my fans number one, my followers number one, my friends number one. It's not about me. That's stay humble. They'll love you forever. They're either gonna love you or hate you out there, right? So, and you want, and if you interact with them, especially on social media, where we always say they're a fake DJ or they're not playing whatever, always about that either. It's about personality and community, like what me and you were doing, right? We're communicating, we're becoming friends, we're becoming. You're going to follow me, I'm going to follow you. Is it all about the money all the time? No, it's not. It's about connecting with those people on TikTok if you want to. I mean, I do. It's kind of fun because I learn, and and there's many ways to make money off of it. Which I make money off of TikTok a little bit. Not much, but I just did it. Most of the time, I do things just to. I guess one other thing, and then we can close it off here, is that one of the reasons why I do the things I do is mostly for myself to see if I can accomplish it. Money has no bearing in what I do.
Definitely.
It's not, money doesn't make me successful. Okay, what makes me successful is the education behind whatever I make with what I have knowledge of, or getting knowledge from somebody else. And I can teach everybody what I do. Can they make money on it? Some can, some can't. Because they just don't have the interest in it. Whatever the case may be, there's no right or wrong to it. But just you have to enjoy what you do, and you have to love what you do, and that will show on your stage. And it'll, if you don't like what you do, then don't do it. That's the whole thing. Don't do it for the money. If you're in here for the money, don't do it.
I mean,
that's what I've always learned. You gotta.
That's
That's why I tell DJs it's all about your personality and your passion for the industry.
if you take care of the people, they will take care of you.
Yes, they will. Yeah.
Oh, wait, wait. Oh, Chris just said something. Let me see what he said. I've DJ for the Germans and Jordanians before. Very cool experience. Mark, you spoke of the MWR. I opened up the comedians for them as well.
Oh,
Okay.
cool.
So he's already he's already been exposed to that overseas. Okay.
Yeah. So he knows it's a total different experience.
Yes,
So
it is.
you can't compare it. Actually, there's some things you can compare, and other things you just can't.
You're right.
He just can't.
I know
Even
DJ,
here, I mean, there's people. I can't compare one client over another client. You just can't.
and like when I was doing my little thing in DJing in the combat zone in Afghanistan, that was a very unique experience. Because all I had was a laptop, and we had to rig up some stuff just to have a little area to party at, which technically it wasn't much of a party, but it was good. It was
You don't want to wake up. You don't want to wake up the enemy there, buddy.
Right.
Do we have a lot of people following?
No, and we had a lot of people popping in and out.
Yeah.
And what we're gonna do is I'm gonna say hello, but we're gonna go ahead and say goodbye to everybody. Then I'm gonna go back into the studio. So don't jump off yet. But everybody, I'm glad for y'all who tuned in. I hope you enjoyed the show, and it's gonna be a lot.
Thanks, everybody.
So, Ron, you go ahead and say your last final words.
I'd just like to say thanks for everybody for your questions, and hopefully I answered the best I can there for you. You can always follow me and text me more questions if you want. Thanks for following. Thanks for tuning in, and hope to see you on the next broadcast. But have a great day. Stay positive.
All right, y'all take it easy out there.